Hello there everyone and welcome to your July installment of what is everyone's favourite Letterboxd log show, It's Last Month I Watched. Now, groundbreaking, you might be noticing, we're in the new studio, we're in the room, look at it, I kind of like it. Now I get it, it's kind of bare, we've got nothing in these units here, we've only got a couple of Funko Pops in these ones and a Mandalorian and the MEDIA13 sign, which will be getting retired soon, I know, it's sad. But I need ideas. What should I decorate each of these units with? Should I make each one, correlate to like a big video that I'm working on? Because if so, teaser, I'll do that just now. So you all know the rules by now. This is basically the Letterboxd log show where I take a look back at everything that I watched the month before. If you're seeing this a couple of days late, I do apologise, I almost didn't do it at all, but I decided the people need LMIW. We might be ending it in October, but until then, the people need this to survive. We're going to start off with the rewatches that we had this month, or last month. See, even I make mistakes, it happens, people. At the start of the month we were watching the Transformers movies, because obviously Rise of the Beasts did release in June. So with that in mind, we did watch through Transformers, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Extinction, Transformers The Last Knight, and Bumblebee. Of this group of 6 Transformers movies, it continues to be the case that Dark of the Moon is my favourite, and that either of the Mark Wahlberg ones are my least favourite. I don't think that's too much of an unpopular opinion to have with the fellow Transformers fans out there. Subscribe if you also like Transformers. We did watch Rise of the Beasts, however I will obviously discuss that in the Cinema Trip / First Watches segment. We also watched It Follows, which is a very good movie. I watched this following the release of my Smile video, which you should definitely go and watch if you didn't, because I would like it to perform a little better, being honest. I would look at maybe one more view. So if you go and watch that, if you right here go and watch that video, that's me getting my wish, and I thank you for that. But yeah, It Follows, really good film, I enjoy it. We also watched Lake Mungo again because it's just a very, very good movie, and we did watch that because I had just watched another film in a similar vein, which I will talk about soon. Friday the 13th 2009 reboot, and I watched that because of the fact that I am hopefully going to be releasing a video on it sometime soon. Personally, I think it's really underappreciated. I think it deserves a lot more love than what it gets, and that's what I'm going to be exploring in that video. Summer of '84 is another really good horror movie, not from 1984 mind you, although it takes place then. I'm not going to say anything about it, I'm just going to say if you enjoy mystery movies, definitely give it a shot. It's got horror elements, but the main sort of vein behind it is mystery. It's a thriller movie as well. Just to add as well, I understand the lightsaber here is a bit distracting. We will be swapping it out with lighting eventually. It's just, we're sort of bare bones for now, just bear with me. I also watched Mum and Dad again, the Nicolas Cage film with Selma Blair. Fantastic. Not overly great, I wouldn't say that. The writing's a bit questionable at times, to say the least. However, I do think that this is unhinged Nicolas Cage at his best. I love the lines that he has in this movie. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme of Rick from Rick and Morty channeling the power of God to deliver a slap on Morty's face. But that's what that's from. That is from this Nicolas Cage movie. Also watched Fresh, second time I've ever watched this movie. It still holds up. I still think it's a pretty strong one. Obviously it's not without its flaws, but I stand by the point that this is probably my favourite Sebastian Stan performance that I've seen, because I'm never overly convinced by him as the Winter Soldier. And I don't watch any other movies other than Marvel movies, apparently. And finally, on the rewatch stuff, just today, as of filming this on the 30th, the final day of June, I watched Wallace and Gromit: The Wrong Trousers, and that's because I thought it was the anniversary release date. It's not, that's in September, I think. But we watched it anyway, because who doesn't love a little bit of Wallace and Gromit? Moving things right on, we're done with the rewatches, and now it's time to talk briefly on what I watched this month in terms of television. And I think there's no better place to start than getting the Marvel stuff out of the way. I started Secret Invasion. I posted a review of episode 1 to TikTok. I've watched episode 2 as well. I wasn't planning on making a review of episode 2 in the first place. I'm probably going to make another video at the end, probably maybe even on here or probably on TikTok. Yeah, it's not something that I wanted to review weekly because I wanted to maybe just try and enjoy the show normally. However, what I've seen so far, I don't hate it. I liked episode 1. I loved episode 1. I liked episode 2. And I'm interested to see where they take it next. We also started The Walking Dead: Dead City. This is the first of the new spin-offs to release, I believe, because Daryl Dixon releases a little later in the year. It's not blowing me away, but it is solid. I do like the two characters, and I think the actors have chemistry together, so it's a nice pairing, and I'm intrigued to see where they take that next. you're probably going to hear more thoughts about it next month. We also watched the full season of The Last of Us. Now, if you want more in-depth thoughts, I did do a little mini thread on Twitter breaking down, my favourite parts, the stuff that didn't work for me. Overall, I'd say it's a 7 out of 10. I'd say the general consensus is correct in that I think it's a good show. I think it's a good adaptation. It's an okay adaptation actually, but I wouldn't go further than that. Where it does new things, it excels, but where it tries to adapt or change little things, it very rarely succeeds and just ends up making me wonder what they had in mind when trying to rationalize it for a TV show. And then finally for the TV, we have to talk about this lovely, beautiful little mustached man beside me here, Ted Lasso. I watched season 3. I did cry, I will be real. There is a video in the works. Whether it ever sees the light of day, I don't know, because I promised a lot of things in the last month I watched. About 10% of it probably comes to fruition. But yeah, I absolutely loved Ted Lasso season 3. Dare I say it, probably the perfect ending they could have went for, even if it's not the one I wanted at first. But yeah, love Ted Lasso. Hopefully you'll see a bit more in the future. If not, I will cover it in some form because it does deserve that. And people, it's time now to get to the segment that everyone can't speak. The segment that everyone wants. It's MEDIA13's trips to the cinema and MEDIA13's first watch club. Still working on the names for this thing. Lamau is under a bit of a construction period, obviously. We're not doing things perfectly anymore. We saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse twice. That is something that may or may not have released last month. I saw it twice. First time, thought it was decent, thought it was pretty good. Second time, it might just be one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed in my life. I don't want to speak on it too much because when it does come out in physical release, I do plan on doing a more in-depth, video on both of the films together. Because I'm lazy and I can't be bothered making 2 videos. Very, very good movie. I pray to God that they delay Beyond the Spider-Verse because I want this thing to be as good as possible, people. I don't care if they have to delay it with 10 years, maybe 10 years is a bit far. 3 years, delay it 3 years and just make it as good as you possibly can. We also did watch Transformers Rise of the Beasts, and adding this into my ranking, I can still confirm that Dark of the Moon is unfortunately my favourite because I would have loved for this thing to be top. The G1 inspired designs, they're heavenly. I love them. I love them, guys. In general though, the film, it plays it pretty safe. It never hits the heights of how Michael Bay would frame these blockbuster movies. But then, to counter that, it never gets as bad as either of the Mark Wahlberg films, so it's just a pretty good movie. It's an enjoyable one. It's a good Transformers film. I had fun with it. You should watch it, probably when it comes out in physical release, because I'm not sure there's too many places showing it anymore. I've just noticed behind me as well there is a shadow. If I do that, you can probably see my shadow doing it behind me. That will be away soon. I will be getting a secondary light to go at that side to sort of cancel that thing out. But for the meantime, again, like I said, the setup's still just a work in progress. But I wanted to get a feel for things, even if the audio might suck, because I think it might. I'm not fully done soundproofing things. I don't care. This is pretty cool though. I like that I can move around like this. I like that I can be a bit more free, a bit more jiggy. But speaking of jiggy, we have a film that did not make me very jiggy because I watched Malum. I'm not sure what it was. It's a horror movie. And that is my review. I don't know what it was. I wasn't that big a fan, to be honest with you, but what I was a fan of is Pearl, which I finally managed to watch. When I tell you people that this thing was an experience, I don't think it's as good as I hoped it would be, but it's still very, very, very good. It's still a solid 8 out of 10 horror movie. I think that Mia Goth was fantastic. Absolutely loved her in it. Did I just hear something? There was a spider in that sink. Really couldn't go wrong with this thing. I'm definitely going to watch it again sometime with X as a double billing. And then obviously we've got Maxine coming out soon as well, which is just, I can't wait for. We then watched the Poughkeepsie tapes, which is the film that I then watched Lake Mungo after, because they're in the same sort of vein of films. However, where Lake Mungo chooses to disturb you in a more subtle way, I'd say Poughkeepsie tapes does it. And it's a similar vein of film, a mockumentary style thing. However, it takes the more direct approach, and I think this is a film that the only way I will ever have the stomach to revisit this thing is if I want to cover it in a video, which I might do in October. I'm not entirely sure. But this thing was demented. As a horror fan, there is not a whole lot that gets me anymore. This thing did. This thing left me feeling a little bit uncomfy. Just an incredibly strong movie with a very, very gut-wrenching ending. I can say I really don't want to give anything away, because any horror fans out here watching this have not seen the film, go and do that, because you're missing out. I then watched Willow Creek, and horror fans, if you've not seen this one, you're not missing out on this one. It's not very good. It's a Bigfoot movie, it's a found footage movie. That's pretty much... I didn't say, when I made the found footage stuff last year, I didn't say that every found footage movie was good. There's a very good portion of them, but some of them, including this one, they're terrible. I then watched Watcher, because I like watching Watcher. I did watch it 1.5 times. I'm saying watch too many times. I did watch it 1.5 times because I was sort of sleepy the first time I watched it, so I stopped it halfway through, went back to the start, watched it all the way through, and it's a pretty good movie. I don't really know what else to say on it. It stars the It Follows actress. I'm struggling to remember her name now, but I will put it on screen. Suspense, it builds it well. It holds itself together nicely. I should have wrote notes for this one, man. Town That Dreaded Sundown. Apparently this is a remake of a probably better film, because I wasn't overly keen on this one. You know, it was okay. There was some interesting moments, but apart from that, there was nothing that really makes me remember anything past what I just told you. We also have Wrath of Becky, which I watched. This is a sequel to a film called Becky, starring Kevin James as a psychopath, which, if you remember correctly, when I spoke about it, when I watched it in the last month I watched, I said that it was the timeline where Kevin James did not get the call up for Grown Ups 3 with Adam Sandler. Wrath of Becky, unfortunately, does not feature Kevin James. If I remember correctly, he did die in the first one. It features other people, and it does feature the return of Becky, obviously. And yeah, it's an okay movie. It takes on, it's labelled as a horror, it takes on more of an action approach. There's not a whole lot of horror in this, I don't think. I wouldn't call this a horror movie. What I would call a horror movie, however, is Creep, and not the Creep that I covered last year. Creep is a British movie, this one that I'm talking about. It was okay. The premise that the description sold me on was over in about 10 minutes. Unfortunately. Speaking of, I did also watch Hitcher, which I've not got loaded here. I did watch Hitcher as well. It's another film where the premise that it sold me on was over within about 15-20 minutes, and the rest of it's just a bit of a disappointment. So yeah, Hitcher and Creep, both very disappointing movies, and I'm really glad that I described that like that, because otherwise I would never have remembered Hitcher, and you never would have got my insanely nuanced thoughts on it. And finally, ending the month, we watched Urban Legend, which is a slasher film. Fuck me, it's getting too late. It's a slasher film taking place at a college, I believe, where the killer kills people based on urban legends. And this is a film that managed to keep its premise going the entire movie. I wish the other ones would take notes, because otherwise it wouldn't have been such an average month. I enjoyed Urban Legends. It's definitely not one of the best slashers I've ever seen. There is a lot of faults with this thing. But I can see that there's charm there. There's definitely charm there. The spider's moving. There's definitely charm there, and it's something that I did enjoy, and I would probably watch it again, being honest with you. But anyway, that's going to do it for last month I watched this month. Again, I apologise if the audio hasn't been the cleanest if you've come this far. I do appreciate it. Like I said, I just wanted to get into this setup and, get a feel for things, because the bedroom was really cramping my style, If you did enjoy this video, feel free to leave a like. I do really appreciate it. And if you're new around here, and again, you've watched this far, I promise that the audio is not always this bad. I promise we normally make better content than this. So, hit subscribe. Join the MEDIA13 fan club. I have a Discord server. I'll link it in the description, although it is completely dead and I don't ever speak in it and no one ever does. But you could be the person to change that. Feel free to get down to the comments and let me know what you watched last month, as well as any opinions of mine that you did not expect to hear in this video. Also, just leave a comment, let me know something random, because the engagement on most of my videos is terrible, and I'd like to change that. I do read every single comment. It takes about 20 seconds of my day once a month. But I do read them. They are there, I do look through them, and I reply to them when I get them, unless it's Ilium saying something like lol, in which case I don't know how to respond to that anymore. But anyway, that's going to do it for me. My name has been Jordan. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. We will have this audio hopefully fixed for the next time we record in here, and I will see you all in the next one.